Hello. Hello. Happy Halloween. And I'm going to do a Halloween beer, a pumpkin ale review tonight. And the beer I'm doing tonight is Southern Tier Brewing's Pumking Ale. Imperial Ale, that is. Southern Tier Brewing's Imperial Pumking Ale. Let me get my candles lit and we'll get to the brew. While I'm doing this, here's a clip from their website. Alright, here's what Southern Tier Brewing website says about this beer. Pumking Imperial Ale. It's good to be king. All Hallows Eve is a time of the year when spirits can make contact with the physical world and when magic is most potent. Some think we harness magic to brew our powerful pumpkin ale. Not so, but it is with great respect to the magic of the trade that our brewers craft this fine beer. Savor the bewitching taste, share the magic, and declare your loyalty to the pumpkin. And if you go to Southern Tier Brewing's website, they've got quite a bit on this I won't go into here. They've got a whole line of three pumpkin beers to include this one, and they've even got a pumpkin whiskey, which I haven't tried, probably won't, being that I'm strictly pretty much a beer drinker, if anything. But, every once in a blue moon. So it's available in 12-ounce bottles, which I have a couple here. Alcohol by volume, it's a heavy hitter at 8.6%. Available August to October. Malt 2-row pale, Munich, and C60, which is all barley. Barley malt. Hops CTZ, color deep copper. They use an ale yeast, 2 varieties of hops, 2 variety of malts, pumpkin and spices. Aroma, nutmeg, cinnamon, clove, allspice, vanilla, buttery crust. It's pumpkin pie in a glass. Bitterness, moderate at 28 IBU. Which I would say that's rather light for a beer with an imperial ale, but we'll see. Body, medium to light. And this is off their website. So, the beer. To the beer. And that's what the bottle looks like, by the way. All right, to the beer. Okay, so that's what they have to say about their beer. And their website's actually quite extensive. They really kind of made a thing out of their pumpkin line of beers and whiskey. And Southern Tier Brewing, Lakewood, it's down by Buffalo. I'm in central New York, upstate. I'd say they're about 100, maybe 150 miles from where I'm sitting. But Southern Tier, if you don't know, Southern Tier New York refers to the rural, mountainous, mostly mountainous, geography on southern New York state, from the Catskills west to Buffalo, Niagara Falls, as it borders Pennsylvania. So the southern part of New York State, and it's relatively it's very rural, actually, very mountainous. So you can look up more on the Southern Tier Brewing if you like. I can tell you one thing. I remember when they started out with IPAs, and I think it must have been about 2009, thereabouts. I recall, with my friends. I used to have a social circle then, and most of them liked their beer. Imagine that. And I brought over Southern Tier Brewing's IPA for everybody to try. and none of us could drink it. It was that awful. And I really wanted to like it. And these guys said that they laughed at it. They spit it out. They couldn't drink it. And I said, oh, come on. And I couldn't even get through a glass of it, and I couldn't drink it. So their first beers were just plain awful, and they've come a long ways. So they've lit on to something with this beer. And here you've seen the label on their website. Got a Halloweenish looking guy with a pumpkin head and a crown. All right, I'll tell you what I think of it. Get right to it. Now, I've been pretty sick. I had 4 of these originally, and I tried to review this beer a week or 2 ago, and I couldn't get through it because I was just so sick with COVID. Actually, I had COVID 5 weeks ago, and I got over it. But then what came after the COVID was worse than having the COVID. It's the sickest I think I've ever been in my life. So I couldn't even get through it. I decided to wait and do this. And they put me on an antibiotic yesterday. And it's penicillin. And I'm feeling quite a bit better already. Knock on wood. And lo and behold, I have researched it. The antibiotic they have on me, if I have a few beers, has absolutely zero effect on the antibiotic. None whatsoever. Does not affect it at all. It's one of the few you can drink some beers with. So here we go. Halloween's just a few days out. I don't really celebrate Halloween, of course, but I am going to put this on my porch. This guy here. Yeah, I do them all Charlie Brown style. You know, like the old cartoons. A lot of people get fancy carving their pumpkins. Not me, old school. But this town does Halloween in a big way with kids dressed up. Just like this town is so old-fashioned in a way. It's about as good as any place I can think of to raise a family. But you'll see the mom and dad out with their little kids all night. I never knew this town had so many children. And it's very, very innocent. Nobody carrying on, no crime, nothing like that. So I'm going to put this guy out on my porch. You know, I live right in the center of the village. Blah, blah, blah. Right now it's a prop for this beer, Beerblab. I'm going to start calling these Beerblab, not beer reviews, Beerblab. So this Beerblab session, starring Southern Tier Brewing's Pumking Imperial Ale. Imperial basically means it's stronger than an ale would be. Imperial Stout and so forth. All right, let's have a look at this, huh? The pour. Well, it is indeed rather coppery, or should I say pumpkin colored, amber. This beer is probably about 44, 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Been in my fridge for about 2 weeks. That's what it looks like. All right. I'm going to top this glass off. That's why I open them both up. A full pint going, huh? That's the color of it, folks. All right. What does it smell like? I'm not smelling much. Honestly, I blame these candles for that. I got a candle right underneath my snout. I got foam on my nose. I'm afraid I can't smell it very well. I still have a touch of this going on. Hopefully this. Ugh. All right. So what's it taste like? I can taste it, and it tastes good. In fact, it tastes very good. Wow. It really does taste like a bite of pumpkin pie. Identical. I mean, but then you got the bitterness. I got bitterness on the middle and the back where the bitterness receptors are, but the front is creamy, sweet, pumpkin, vanilla. Tastes like pumpkin pie. But with you get the ale, the imperial ale, the hops and all that coming in the back. So it's, I don't know. This is actually quite. That was a pretty good first impression. I couldn't even taste, I was pretty sick. Trying to struggle through it. I didn't even want. I couldn't even drink it. I'm nervous. So sick. Well, that's pretty good. Honestly, that is pretty good. I like it. I like it. You might like it too. All right. Tim Blab. I hope if this antibiotic works, I really hope it does. I have to keep working. I have to keep breathing. I know a few other people that are quite sick with this, and they on their sixth week. And I read that this is Tim Blab, because I can taste this. It tastes good. Before I could, it didn't. It didn't taste like this when I tried it. I think 2 weeks ago, almost. I couldn't get through it. I just couldn't. Oh. If this antibiotic works on this, I know some people that are quite sick with the same thing. They got a really, it's like a sinus cold, and it tries to work its way down. It's awful. I've had sinus infections before, and this one is the mother of them all. It was really awful. Put it this way, I'm waking up in the middle of night every night, having to get up and gargle with warm salt water just to clear my throat so I could go back to sleep. And then get up at a little after 5 to go to work. It's been pretty miserable. I've bossed through it, Bossed my way through it. I heard my son say that years ago. Kyle. He said, just boss through it. I said, what do you mean boss through it? Show it who the boss is. So, it's been tough. It's been like a grudge match between two fighters. And I felt like I was losing it, honestly. But if the antibiotic works, I'm going to let these people know. I should know. I'm feeling better, if you can't tell. But I've had a couple of good days, and then the next day, it's back to... so I should know in a day or two. I say in 2 more days I'll know whether the antibiotic works. I hope it does. Because I know an older man than me, and I know a child who caught this, and they're suffering. And same thing, and I'll let them know that I take the PinVK 500, and it should clear it up if it works with me. Tim Blab. So I can taste this beer now. And I like it. Looks rather flat in this glass, and I don't believe this is a flat beer. I think it's the glass. I'm pretty sure if I got another glass, it would be really foamy. In fact, I know it will be because I did this before with another glass, and there was a big difference. It's quite a foamy beer, actually. Quite a good head on it. I don't know what it is about this particular glass. It doesn't take a head. I'll get another glass. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so just an experiment. We'll see how it looks in this, which I just rinsed this out. It's sitting around. You never know, it might have a spider in it. I've had that happen. The glass can make a big difference on the head on your beer. So we'll be fair, we'll give it a little bit of time, let it set. See how that head holds up. Still carving these. Oh, the little kid in me still. You know. So if you like pumpkin pie and you want to have a beer, this might be a beer for you. That's exactly what it tastes like. Pumpkin pie with a bitter finish. Kind of creamy beer. Well, it's still holding up, the head on this. My head's still holding up. Tell you, I was coughing so hard I almost passed out. I don't know how many times. Sore throat. Yeah, that was, could have been worse. Wasn't really worried about it, honestly, but it was making life kind of difficult for a while. And I'm not in the clear yet, but I feel good enough to do this review, and I can taste this beer finally, and it tastes pretty good. It's very creamy, kind of, creamy is a good word for it. Smooth. They've got a good beer, and I can see why they only had 28 IBUs, which honestly, for an 8.6% alcohol Imperial Ale. Um, I thought that was pretty low on the bitterness, IBUs, International Bitterness Unit. That's how they measure the hops in the beer, the bitterness. But they wanted they wanted to balance it so that it does taste like pumpkin pie with whipped cream and nutmeg and cloves. Maybe a little vanilla ice cream, a scoop, just like Mom used to make it. Or at least mine did, and it was great from scratch. But then, so that you're drinking a beer and not pumpkin pie. It does come across in the finish as an ale. You get that. So it's kind of like a really good balance between the two. Pumpkin pie with whipped cream, nutmeg, cloves, vanilla, and an imperial ale balance. You get both of that kind of in one drink. Oh yeah. Another thing about hops and beer. Hops has antibacterial properties to it. It's one of the reasons they started putting hops in beer was, the beer stayed fresh longer. It inhibits bacterial growth. So I thought, with this going on, what hops doesn't actually kill beer bacteria. I did some little research on it. What hops does is it prevents bacteria from feeding. It blocks their mechanism for bringing nutrients in, so the bacteria starves, and they can't reproduce. Obviously, they're either too weak or they're dead. But hops in beer inhibit bacteria from getting the nutrients they need to live. Wonderful. Oh, man. I knew to wait and give this a chance because I had a feeling it was better than, it was just, everything was awful when I tried to do this. I couldn't even finish the beer. I felt so awful, and the beer didn't taste right. It was just, yeah, I was right. It is actually very good. My spiral candles. Now, they said this was a medium to light body beer. I disagree with that. On their website, they said that, you might recall. This is medium to heavy. Because I'm not going to sit here and drink both of these. Honestly, I don't have that much Tim Blab in me right now. Well, I guess I could. I guess I could. What the heck, huh? Cowboy up. Go cry in your truck or cowboy up. I've been cowboying up and making it to work. Sick, sick, sick. And I know it hasn't been contagious for almost a month. But one of my workers, she's afraid of her own shadow, and shouldn't you ought to be wearing a mask? And I told her, I've been to the doctors, I've taken COVID tests, I don't have anything. This is the post problem with it. But I've been wearing a COVID mask just for her, whatever, assurance. And which made it even more hard to breathe, honestly. But I wore a COVID mask, and while I was working, and out of respect for her rights, I swear that woman looked at me when I came back because I missed a week of work from this. And when I came back to work, that woman looked at me, and she talks a lot. I said, "You want to talk about blab? Blab, 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 blab. That's all this woman blab, blab, blab. She'll out blab me." And so her blab isn't high quality blab either. I hear her talk about coming to work, and if somebody's tailgating her, she slams on her brakes. Give them a brake check, she says. And she's going to cause an accident doing that kind of stuff. And I said, shouldn't you, people tailgate me, I just ignore them, and because the only thing that counts is what's in front of you. And blab, blab, blab. She's got a lot of political opinions, but yet she's proud to say she doesn't vote. Blab, 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 blab. And I've got to love her the way Christ loves her, so that's what I tell myself. Jesus sees something special in her. Jesus sees something very special in her. Jesus loves her. Okay. But I wore a COVID mask because when she looked at me when I came back, she looked at me like I was the Grim Reaper. Seriously. I read her, she's just kind of like, I don't know if I can even, she just got kind of slack-jawed and stared at me like I'm going to give her COVID-19 and that's going to kill her. And so, And that's when she said, shouldn't he be wearing a mask? And I said, I'm not contagious. And I just heard her grumble a bit, and I brought a mask, and I said, okay, I put it on. And everything was golden at that point. Yeah. Well, one down. This one still has a little bitty head on it, so it's a lot to do with the glass you have. Just so you know. I wouldn't say this is a 10. Well, most people rate their beers 1 out of 5. But then they go 4.3, 4.2. They don't just do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or let alone 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, 4.5, 5. They go right like 3.7. So why don't we stop rating our beers 1 through 5, and we'll put it up to a 10. All right, 10. 5's too generalized. Being a 10, I guess you got to say 10 is, I've never had a 10 beer that's perfect. There's no such thing as a 10 beer unless, Jesus himself brewed it. What was his first miracle? He turned water into wine. And some people say grape juice. No, he didn't turn it into grape juice. Sorry, it was a wedding party. People traveled, they stayed there. For I think it was 7 days, Jesus' first miracle. The wedding party was 7 days long, and they ran out of wine, not grape juice. And the word is actually, it could have been beer, honestly, because I read an article from the Smithsonian a few years ago that said, they say wine, the translation, the original word meant a mild alcoholic drink. And, Jesus's contemporaries couldn't afford wine, really. They likely drank beer. Jesus likely drank beer. That's what I read. And because they could afford that. Wine was pretty expensive. But maybe, you know, he turned it into wine, or maybe he turned it into beer. But they said it was the best they had, and the guest commented, you served your best wine last. And they said usually the host serves their best first, and then towards the end of the 7-day feast party, you know, then they serve their worst, the whatever. But the wine or beer, whatever Jesus turned 7 barrels of water into wine, was exceptionally good. So if Jesus brewed the beer, I would say it would be a 10. Being that he didn't brew this beer, or any beer I've ever had that I know of, I've never had a 10 beer. Jesus beer. So what would I rate this? I think I've had a couple of beers I would say were a 9. I would give this 1 to 10. For its style, I haven't drank enough pumpkin ales really to, just for beer. I give it a 7 or an 8. I'd have to say a 7. I'm not nuts about it, but it is pretty good. I mean, they've got a good one here. One more. I would say, seven or an 8. I want to say an 8, but I don't think it's quite an 8. An 8's pretty good. Being has the best beer I think I've ever had. If a 10 would be beer that Jesus Christ himself brewed, I'd say maybe I've had a 9. You think of a couple? This would be a 7, with just an average beer being about a 5 or a 6. This is above average. This is pretty good. So I'm going to give this a 7.